Hey there, I'm Benjamin from Loves Data. In this video, we're going to look at date ranges and historical data in Google Analytics. If you're wondering how far back you can go in your reports and how date ranges are different between standard and exploration reports, you're in the right place. When it comes to date ranges, there are a few issues you might encounter in your Google Analytics reports. Let's head to Google Analytics to take a look. Okay, we're currently looking at Google's demo property, and we're going to start with the exploration reports. So let's navigate to Explore. And let's select Freeform to create a new report. We're looking at the default Freeform template. This shows us the city locations of users along with the number of active users by device category. We can see the default date range on the top left corner. If we scroll all the way to the top, we can see the first available date we can select is in October 2023. So this means we can use a date range that includes a maximum of 14 months of historical data. Let's select the first available start date and the last available end date and click Apply. So this is the maximum date range we can use in an exploration report. This maximum also applies if you want to use a comparison with your date range. Let's select our date range again to see this, and let's scroll down in the first column and enable the option to use a comparison. And let's click Apply. We can see an error message appears because we've tried to select a date range outside of what we can use. So if you want to also use a comparison, you'll need to reduce your date range to do this. Let's click OK. And let's select our date range again. I just want to point out one more thing, and that's the predefined option for last calendar year. Selecting this option will always show an error unless it's January or February. Another thing you might encounter with exploration reports is a limit of 2 months for your date range. I'm going to show you why this happens. To show you why you only see 2 months for the date range, let's head to my own demo property. I've already created an exploration report, so let's select the date range. Scrolling, we can see we can select a maximum of 2 months. This is happening because of the data retention setting for the property. To change this, let's navigate to Admin, and let's select Data Retention. We can see the setting for event data is set to 2 months. This is why we're only seeing the option to select a 2-month date range in the exploration report. Let's select this and choose 14 months. Now we click Save. It takes 24 hours for this change to take effect, so you will need to wait until you can use a longer date range with your exploration report. Now that we've covered date ranges for our exploration reports, let's take a look at the standard reports. Let's navigate to Reports. The standard reports let you apply longer date ranges than the exploration reports. This is because data is aggregated for the standard reports. However, any user-based information will still be removed from these reports after your selected data retention period. Let's navigate to Engagement and select Events. This demo property was set up in 2019, so let's select the current date range and change the date range to 2019. Now let's click Apply. Let's adjust the chart so it's by month. And hovering over on the very left of the chart, we can see the event count, along with the top 5 events. Since we're looking at the events report and this doesn't contain any user-based information, we can choose to narrow down our date range and continue to see details in the table. To do this, let's adjust the date range. And let's set the date range for November to December 2019. And click Apply. We can see the events that were collected for the date range. Now we can continue to view granular data in some of our reports. For example, let's navigate to Acquisition and select Traffic Acquisition. We can see individual rows in the report. However, there's an alert at the top. This tells us that the table only includes partial data. Now let's navigate to Engagement and select Pages and Screens. For this report, we can see the aggregate total in the chart at the top, but the table is empty. This is because page views are tied to each user. So this data is unavailable outside of the data retention period. However, I have seen some data available outside of the retention period. Let's change the date range to see this. Let's change the date range so it's from November 2019 to December 2022. Since 2022 is outside of the 14-month retention period, we shouldn't see any data in the report. But let's take a look at what happens when we click Apply. We can now see rows in the table. If you've been collecting data for a while, you will probably be able to find more granular historical data in your reports if you experiment with the date range. What date ranges work in your Google Analytics property? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to learn more about Google Analytics, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and check out my courses. I've included links in the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.